An address to the public by Benjamin Franklin, November 9th, 1789. So in 1789, America was starting out as a new country under new leadership, a new governing document, and a new set of virtues to live by. In America's fragile yet developmental state, a variety of ideas were starting to travel around the country, but some of those ideas were tearing the country apart. One of the main issues was the concept of slavery, and had been debated while forming the Constitution and created a fine line between the South and the North. The North was the commercial, industrial, and trading part, while the South was more agriculture-based and needed labor, therefore needing more hands to tend their fields. In this way, the necessity and reliance on slaves was created. But one of the most influential founding fathers of America, Benjamin Franklin, truly believed that slavery was an idea that tore apart at the liberty and freedom of the enslaved. Through his address, an address to the public, given on November 9, 1789, he confronted the freedom being twisted out of the enslaved, specifically black men. Franklin puts it strictly to the public. Slavery defiles the hearts and minds of the enslaved, and the abolition of slavery is necessary. Franklin's motivation to abolish slavery was influenced by a certain factor, his trip and relationship with France. In December of 1786, Franklin arrived in Paris as ambassador to France from America. There he was highly praised, and a French claim described him as, and excuse me for my French, I don't speak French, "Er poet coelho fulmen, subtrumque tyrannis," or he snatched lightning from heaven and the scepter from the tyrants. In France until 1785, he would remain in Paris, carrying out his ideas of democracy and virtues from America, later influencing France to participate in their own revolution. On February 4, 1794, the National Convention of France published a decree that stated all Negro slaves in the French colonies were free, and that all men, despite color, will be considered equal and retain their rights assured by the French Constitution. This sort of ordeal most likely sparked an interest in Franklin to abolish slavery within America as well. When he returned back to America in 1785, he continued his position as the president of the Society in Pennsylvania, or the Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery and the Relief of Negroes Unlawfully Held in Bondage. With this association founded by a group of Pennsylvania Quakers, people who valued peace and pacifism, Franklin continued to advocate for the abolition of slavery, but also aid for slaves after they were freed. It is clear that Franklin's intentions were to free slaves, as he felt like they were unjustly held in captivity. In the beginning of the document, Franklin addresses the Pennsylvania Abolition Society and praises the society for coming so far. Franklin states, "It is with peculiar satisfaction we assure the friends of humanity that in prosecuting the design of our association, our endeavors have proved successful, far beyond our most sanguine or positive expectations. Encouraged by the success and by the daily progress of that luminous and benign or kind spirit of liberty, which is diffusing itself throughout the world, and humbly hoping for the continuance of the divine blessing on our labors, we ventured to make an important addition to our original plan, and do therefore earnestly solicit or ask for the support and assistance of all who can feel the tender emotions of sympathy and compassion, or relish the exalted pleasure of beneficence or kindness." He's beginning the address with a kind and almost heartwarming tone, as he's trying to get the public's attention, attract them to his address, and ask for support. But by this point in time, Franklin is highly popular among the public and the government, and his fame allowed his words to spread quickly. Yet he still genuinely asked the public to listen to him, showing that he was passionate about abolition. After he humbly praises his society, he then subtly commends America, and also notes the spirit of liberty that is not only opening doors in America, but all over the world. He is referring heavily to the French Revolution, kick-started in 1789, and claims that, "a common observation here, that our cause is the cause of all mankind, and that we are fighting for their liberty and defending our own." His diplomacy in France from 1776 to 1785 helped to draw out those lines and strengthen his connection with France and the actions they were taking in response to the American Revolution itself. Franklin is clearly passionate about abolition and calls upon the public, if they are kind and generous, to help his cause. After addressing the public, Franklin makes a powerful statement about slavery. "Slavery is such an atrocious debasement of human nature that its very extirpation or complete removal, if not performed with solicitous care, may sometimes open a source of serious evils. The unhappy man, who has long been treated as a brute animal, too frequently sinks beneath the common standard of the human species. The galling chains that bind his body, do also fetter or chain his intellectual faculties, and impair the social affections of his heart. Accustomed to move like a mere machine, by the will of a master, reflection is suspended. He has not the power of choice, and reason and conscience have but little influence over his conduct, because he is chiefly governed by a passion of fear. He is poor and friendless, perhaps worn out by extreme labor, age, and disease. Under such circumstances, freedom may often prove a misfortune to himself and prejudicial to society. Franklin believes that slavery is truly atrocious. However, he reminds the public that slavery's extirpation or complete removal could lead paths to more evil. In reference to this, Franklin may have been thinking along two guidelines. The debate of slavery during the Constitutional Convention of 1787, 2 years ago, struck a chord among the delegates and eventually transformed into the Three-Fifths Compromise. At this time, Franklin was already the president of the Pennsylvania Abolition Society and an advocate for abolition, and he had received news from his society to bring up their cause. But he was wise and realistic enough to not bring it up, as it would break the delegates apart. If he did, South Carolina and other deep southern states may threaten to secede, breaking the unity of the nation. His other precaution may have been towards slave rebellions, thinking of the Stoner Rebellion of 1739, although this route may have been less conceived of. Towards the end of this excerpt, Franklin acknowledges that direct abolition of slavery could potentially lead to worse situations that would debilitate freed slaves even more. In order to remove slavery, the people needed to find a way to help guide freed blacks into society without prejudice. This passage reveals Franklin's wisdom and his ability to foresee potential outbreaks, and he seeks a way to unfetter slaves and integrate them into society smoothly with the help of the public. Franklin's main goal in his public address was to inform the public of his advocacy for abolition and the cruelty behind slavery, but he also offers insight on integrating freed blacks. He emphasizes that they too have a role in the American society. Attention to emancipated or freed black people, it is therefore to be hoped, will become a branch of our national policy. But as far as we contribute to promote this emancipation, so far that attention is evidently a serious duty incumbent or necessary on us, in which we mean to discharge the best of our judgment and abilities. To instruct, to advise, to qualify those who have been restored to freedom, for the exercise and enjoyment of civil liberty, to promote in them habits of industry, to furnish them with employment suited to their age, sex, talents, and other circumstances, and to procure their children an education calculated for their future situation in life. These are the great outlines of the Annex Plan, which we have adopted and which we conceive will essentially promote the public good and the happiness of these too much neglected fellow creatures. A plan so extensive cannot be carried into execution without considerable pecuniary resources, beyond the present ordinary funds of the Society. We hope much from the generosity of enlightened and benevolent freemen, and will gratefully receive any donations or subscriptions for this purpose, which may be made to our treasurer, James Starr, or to James Pemberton, chairman of our Committee of Correspondence. In this large excerpt, Franklin continues to express the integration of free blacks into American society without prejudice. This must imply that Franklin knows that emancipated black people are completely capable of achieving goals and setting ideals for themselves. This opinion is reflected from Franklin's visit to a Negro school in Philadelphia in 1763. When he visited, Franklin claimed that the black students gave him a higher opinion of the natural capacities of the black race than I had ever before entertained. Their apprehension seems as quick, their memory as strong, and their docility in every respect equal to that of white children. After his visit, Franklin realizes that black people possess intelligence that put them next to white men, something many Americans had dismissed. Franklin starts to develop a sympathy for the enslaved, and he sees potential in free blacks. In addition to integration, the middle of the excerpt gives a list of actions to do when slaves are freed in order to guide them into society. This includes carrying and giving an education to black children reflective of his school visit. Franklin proceeds to mention an annex plan or an added plan that he and the PAS have adopted. This is most likely in reference to the Constitution of the Pennsylvania Society, that began in 1774 and was enlarged in April of 1787. This constitution in particular brought up the actions Franklin listed, including the promotion of the public good and the happiness of black men. The Constitution continues to persist that these fellow creatures are entitled to American laws and acts, and states that the Creator of the world, or God, made all men of the same flesh, despite color or race. The same idea of God as the maker of all men is prevalent in the petition from the Pennsylvania Society for the Abolition of Slavery, signed on February 3, 1790, a few months after Franklin's address to the public. This time, Franklin brings up the slavery issue to Congress as opposed to the people, meaning that he and his society are ready to make a change in America. Franklin finally ends his address to the public, asking kind souls to donate money to the society in order to achieve their goal, and expose freed blacks to the benevolent spirit of liberty. As a result of Franklin's petition to Congress, the first fully recorded debate over slavery proceeded. Congress could not ignore Franklin's petition, as he was extremely popular among the public, an influential founding father, and well known around the world. Clearly, Benjamin Franklin's popularity and stature strung importance into his words, and allowed for his advocacy of abolition to spread among the public and Congress. Through the foreign influence of France and exposure to the capability and intelligence of black men, Franklin was ready for a change in America to occur. He was insistent on integrating black men into the social system of America, and no longer wanted the stratification that divided the two races. Additionally, this address reveals a lot about Franklin and his belief that black men could be a part of society. He truly believed in equality among the people, in giving all men life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as all men are of the same flesh. Franklin and his supporters prepared a generation of people who believed in abolition, and his influence helped the enslaved to finally gain what they deserve, the restoration of freedom.